Towards the end of the last video, we made our button widgets, and this involved copying and pasting, and it generated a lot of repeated code. It turns out that this is a recyclable trialing opportunity. A reminder that in your assessment, you have to show trialing, some of which can be recycled. Of course, if all you give me is recycled trialing, your grade will be limited to achieved at best. Having said that, the first trial for creating widgets was manual creation, which gives us lots of repeated code. In a minute, I'm going to show how we can use a loop to create the code in a much more efficient way. Off camera, I did a third trial where I discovered that we could use dictionaries to create our widgets. The nice thing about this trial is that the code is quite compact. Unfortunately, it gave PEP8 errors, and at the end of the day, the amount of code is similar to what I'm going to show you. And if this was an assessment, you'd need to make it clear which trial you decided to use, and you should explain why you chose that option. Please go ahead and save your temperature GUI as version 2. Then we can go ahead and remove the button code. We can replace it and set up a list. And inside that list, we're going to have 4 items. Each of those items is itself a list, which has the details for the button. We've got the button text, the background color, placeholder for what we want the button to do, and then our row column numbers. Next, we can make a reference list to hold the widgets once we've created them. We can then loop to make the buttons, referencing the text, the background color, what we want the button to do, the row, and the column. Once our buttons have been made, we can add them to the reference list, going button ref list, dot append, make button. Outside the loop, we can retrieve our history button. Remember, we start counting at 0, so our 4th button is in position 3. And when we first make the GUI, we want this button to be disabled because there's no calculations to show, so we don't want people to be able to click on a history that doesn't exist. And it's a really great idea to comment your code with comments that describe the behavior. And when we run our code, it works correctly, and you'll notice that our history export button is disabled as hoped. This means that we can update our documentation to show that we've successfully created the GUI and tested it. If you're keen to practice looping widgets, you could try to create another loop that loops through our different labels, and then you could configure them after the fact. In this case, because each of our labels has a different formatting, I'm not convinced that looping to make them is our best option. So my next step is to have a look at my board and realize that we're going to check the input, and then we can go ahead and do some calculations. And I'll show you how to do that in the next video.